Good morning, everybody. This is Victoria, your dog guru, and today's a very special episode because today we're getting our first guest to the show, and she actually has her own podcast called Pearls for My Mom, and I'm going to include a link to her podcast as well because it's a beautiful concept, and I think that a lot of people will really enjoy it and relate to it, so definitely check that out. She has some questions about her dog, Lily, who's a rescue that she fell in love with. And so we're going to be giving her some tips and tricks on what to do about Lily and how to help her out. So without further ado, this is Jessie.
So her name's Lily. She's a girl.
Lily.
She's the best. And my husband and I were thinking about having a third child.
Okay.
And then we were like, maybe we should get a dog instead.
It's either puppy or baby. Who do I really want to put to sleep at night? But at least the puppy stays asleep once you've got a routine going.
That's right. Yeah. So nothing against children. I have two of them. They're wonderful. But we decided on a dog. And I didn't want a puppy actually because I've had a puppy before and it is like having a baby.
Yes, it is.
And puppies get adopted really easy because they're fuzzy and cute and whatever. So I always kind of like adopting an older dog. Mm-hmm. She was like a year old when we got her. And we went to the SPCA, which is the organization in Quebec that's like the animal shelter or whatever. And we just picked her out and we just knew right away. Like I knew, and it was like the first day that she was available for adoption. And I knew that if we
waited, she'd be gone.
Yeah, because she's got these bright blue eyes. She's like a yellow lab mixed with a husky. So she's,
Yeah, I noticed that her ears just like really speak to you.
Yeah. She's got the one like kind of derpy ear, which I totally love. That's not an insult at all. And she was just sitting there. And the sheet said that she may or may not be good with kids because she was a year old.
You were like, we're gonna see.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna test this out because she just seems so nice, and she is like literally the best dog. Like she's just so nice, and the kids, they're not mean to her. They're 8 and 5, so they're not like super rough on her or anything.
Yeah,
but she can handle it.
So what are some of her like fun quirks, or what are things that she kind of pulls on your kids?
Her fun quirk. She's in the room with me right now, and she's fully laid out. But when I do, I have a podcast myself, so when I do my own podcast, it's a gamble. She could either sleep the whole entire time on the bed or just halfway through, she'll just like get up and start walking her. It's a hardwood floor. So there's all these like, I don't know why. It's like, as soon as I get on the phone, she's like.
So most people don't understand this, but when you're podcasting, you need almost like complete silence. And when you have kids like we do, and then you have a dog that's got an opinion, like the other day I was recording and all of a sudden my dog was like, you know what? I see a mailman. Mm-hmm. And he's so good normally, but like he was like, no, mom, baby's napping. You need to hear this. And that was the end of that recording. I had to completely abandon a ship on it because he was obsessed with the mailman spending a little too much time at our property.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I get it. And like, so my dog, she has like separation anxiety. So now like if I let her out of the room, she'll scratch at the door.
Okay.
So she's fine right now. But so sometimes I have to like, we have a baby gate on the stairs, I have to like her upstairs. And then so that way people can't hear her like whining. I mean, it breaks my heart, to hear her whine up there, but I can't have her down here.
So on the separation anxiety, have you ever, I'm assuming you haven't worked with a trainer on anything like that, right?
No, I would love to. I was reading a bit about huskies because I've had a yellow lab before.
Yeah.
I know they're super trainable. And I was reading a bit about huskies, and yes, they love to run. You can train them to do that kind of thing. But I've read that huskies otherwise are not, they're not down to be trained. So
yeah, they're very independent minded. I've worked with different forms of like Nordic/Arctic breeds before, and I can tell you that they kind of have their own plan and you're along for the ride. Mm-hmm. They're super intelligent, but since you kind of have a mix of both, okay, so though they're independent and they're super driven, a lot of times they get so bonded to their owners that any level of separation is too much. I had a client who told me that her husky used to jump into the shower unexpectedly. And she was like, I've never actually, since I've owned this dog, had a shower by myself. She was like, even if he doesn't jump in, his nose is in and he's just watching me. And she says, it's creepy, but I don't know how to stop it. And like you know, she kind of did the baby gate thing. So one of my suggestions to her, and I don't know if you've ever tried this, but one of my suggestions to her was, okay, well, why don't you give him something super good in your absence and only when you're absent? And I was like, start where he can still see you, you know, give him like a peanut butter filled Kong and freeze it because it just takes longer. And then just do quick little bits of time. And because you know that she's okay with you being in the same room, but then you just start moving the Kong further and further away from you. Mm-hmm. And then you can actually start putting, you know, some sort of divider between you, be it a baby gate or a door for your sanity.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. I like
just something to try. I mean, it's non-invasive. If it doesn't work, I mean, she's kind of established a standard with you anyway, so you're used to it, but it's something worth a try.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. Yeah. And she's super attached to me in particular. Like she likes everybody in the house, but it's clear to everybody who the favorite is. So.
Yeah. You're like, I'm mom. I win. I'm winning.
Mm-hmm. I get snuggles. I get the kisses. I get it all.
So when you rescued her, what were some of the things that you had to adjust to in her personality? Or what were some things that you struggled with aside from, you know, she obviously had some anxiety, but besides that?
She's a really good dog, I have to say. She doesn't really chew up much. Like we had there was a Ken doll incident, my daughter's got. And there was a Ken doll that was, you know, but like we leave the doors open. We don't lock things away from her. And one day it was tragic for Ken. I mean, he was mangled. It was a scene. But other than that, you know, she's chewed on a slipper or two, but she's really good. So I don't have many issues with her. But when you put the call out there looking for people, I am interested in this, and I've heard it's a husky thing. So I cannot leave the door open because she will take off and run like a crazy person.
Yeah. Darts like the rent is due tonight and she has to go steal something.
Exactly. And she doesn't, you know, like unfortunately, when I was younger, we lived on a busy road and I have had dogs hit by cars before. And so I really, you know, my sister's dog is a chocolate lab, and she could, you know, the front door could be open. He could just be like, I mean, he's just there hanging out.
Yeah, he's like easy. He's got a homing device installed.
So I don't know if there's anything. I mean, we don't have a fence in front of our house. We have like a half acre, and you know, we're on it's not a busy road or anything, but we live closer to a busy road. So it terrifies me that she's going to run away.
Okay, so I have a really safe solution to start practicing. Okay, because really you've got a couple of things going on. First of all, you've got the impulse control issue of her exiting without your say-so. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the freedom factor, which for Siberian Huskies and Labs alike is substantial. I mean, once they're out and they're in it to win it, I mean, there's nothing that compares to running away from you. Mm-hmm. So what I would typically recommend is get either a super long leash. I don't use retractables, but if that's all you had, you could just lock it in a long position. Mm-hmm. And at first I'm assuming she knows sit. Is that assumption correct?
She does, yes.
Okay, yeah. So you'll start with her at a sit and you'll tell her to wait. And as you're opening the door, you've already got the leash, okay? The longer, the better. And if she starts shifting and moving towards it, you go, and close the door so that she starts learning. And I would keep repeating that. And when she's going to start learning that the only way that door opens all the way is if her butt's on the ground. Mm-hmm. And your leash is really your safety net, because once the door is open and you take 2 steps away from it, guess what she's going to do? She's going to try and run off. But now that you've got a leash, you can kind of bring her back. You can put her in a sit. You can ask her to wait. And you have to practice this process a lot. Even using like a heavy duty value treat, be it chicken or cheese or something that she normally doesn't get, to really reinforce that it's better to listen to you, because she's already figured out that running her own agenda has worked out for her in the past. Mm-hmm. So really working on the impulse control with the door being open, and then you can work, and some clients have to start, 15 feet away from the door to give and then gradually move closer just to get the point across that you're not going to get up. And then I always tell clients, once you see them kind of sitting still, that's when you start turning your back to them, but still holding that leash, because they know that when you're not paying attention, it's a free for all. Mm-hmm. And it takes, especially with dogs that like to dart, I mean, it's going to take a good month of practicing it. And I do it at every door, any exit. You can even practice it within the house, but you're not going to have the same drive behind it that she has by actually leaving. Mm-hmm. But you can do it at any door. And basically, asking her to respond every time the door is open by sitting and waiting, and then without getting a release cue, like, okay, you can go through, she's going to start learning through it. She's going to start going, okay, well, if the door is open, that doesn't mean that I can just leave. And then she'll have gotten a series of good feedback from you, hopefully some treats. And then I occasionally, when they are doing what I ask, then I'll say, okay, and I'll walk outside and we'll just walk back and forth on the street and then go back in, so that they get the ultimate relief of leaving, but only after they've done what I said.
Okay, that makes sense. I can definitely try that.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a try. I had one client, also a Siberian Husky, and he could get out of anything. He scaled an 8-foot fence. Oh, God. He dug under. They installed concrete to solidify the fence below because he dug under it. And then one time, and when he was gone, I mean, it was all over, because he would go 4 or 5 miles before sometimes they'd even know he escaped. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I always recommend is teaching a strong come when called, because should the worst happen, you need to make sure you have a return instinct on them. And for come when called, I give them whatever I know they value most in life. And I practice that a lot, and I do it in every environment, on leash. And the longer your line is, the safer it is, because it gives them the sense of freedom without the ability to just take off on you. And when I say to a dog, say, Lily, come, then I reel them in like a fish. But as they're moving towards me, I'll go, oh, what a good girl. Even if she's being resistant, and you can usually tell. Mm-hmm. But I bring her all the way to me, then I'll ask her to sit, I'll rub her down, and I repeat that process over and over until they start assuming that even when a leash isn't attached, that they have to come because you've taken away the option. Mm-hmm. Now that takes a little bit longer. That takes about 2 months of working on it, but just a couple times a day. I mean, when you remove the option, they stop thinking their way out of things. They start, they're problem solvers naturally, but if they realize that you're going to get them either way, they kind of concede to the battle.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this way, should the worst happen, you've got that come when called. I always add a hand signal too. So like if they're quite a distance away from me, but they still have me with an eye shot, I'll raise my hand up, or I'll put a fist in the air and, say their name to get their attention and say, come. So this way you've got a visual marker, because dogs are typically way more visual than they are auditory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So give that a shot. I mean, worst case scenario, you don't make a lot of progress, but for clients who have dogs that are door darters, first you have to work on the impulse control, and then you have to work on a strong return. And those elements together protect you on both sides.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I can definitely try that.
Is she a chaser?
Yeah. So like the other day I took her out on the porch. I have like a front porch that faces the road, and I didn't have a leash on her, and we just sat in the sun, and I made sure she was close enough to me to where if she did try to dart, I could reach out and get her by the collar.
Yeah.
And so we sat out there, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, and I was really impressed with how calm she was. But if she had seen a squirrel or a cat or another dog, she would have just boom. Yeah. She would have been all over.
All bets were off. Yeah. So that goes back to the impulse control issue. Whenever there's any sort of impulsiveness, you know how we were talking about having her sit and then teaching her that if she gets up, the door closes, which is the opposite of what she wants. Mm-hmm. So before feeding, I don't know if you leave food out all day or how you feed her, but I would have her.
Go ahead. I get the food out and she pretty much eats it right away.
Yeah. So I would add kind of a system to eating. So you'll ask her to sit, you can have the food already ready because she already knows it's coming. And then ask her to sit. And same thing like with the door, as you're putting the bowl down, if she gets up, you go, pull the bowl up and have her sit again, and just kind of do this back and forth until she finally goes, okay, I guess I'm going to have to sit and wait for this food. And then you can gesture to the food and say, okay, because first of all, food is a huge motivator for dogs. And, I've never seen a lab turn their nose up to food ever. So, I say that I have once before, but there's always the one in a million. But what this teaches her is the same skill set that she needs later. If you want a dog to truly have impulse control, you have to teach them a shut off button, which is not natural. They're just kind of like, all right, I see it, it's mine, So especially if you do during meal times, ask her to sit, ask her to wait, and then indicate, okay, because she's listened to you, indicate towards the bowl that she can have it. Now you're installing that impulse control she's lacking at the door, or when she sees something that she wants to chase. So that will transfer through. Short process, like 5 seconds.
That makes sense. I can do that. I can do those things.
Every dog is a little different. So if you're still having issues, just let me know and I can give you other suggestions. But that's a really good starting point.
Cool. Would that help with, like when people ring the doorbell and they first enter the door, she gets like pretty jumpy. Would that?
Yes. Okay. So door behavior. It's a lot the same as, not giving her access through the door until she's held the sit and the wait. Mm-hmm. And I always say, pick a spot about at least 5 feet away from the door. 10 feet is ideal. And I practice this with family members first to give her, an opportunity to fail without having a guest that's like, okay, I really need to come in. Now it's raining outside. So what you can do is put somebody that she knows, somebody that she really likes, that either lives in the home or in your neighborhood, and have them ring the doorbell as if you've done this a million times. And then make sure you have her on a leash. So you just have that other element of control. You won't need it forever, but in the beginning, while you're teaching the process, it's helpful. So you'll go and pick a spot at least 5 feet back from the door, ask her to sit, ask her to wait, and then you start heading towards the door. What is she going to do? She's going to get up. So you're going to put her back and always verbally correct. You'll go, and then point right back to where she came from.
Okay.
So that you're really telling her, no, I put you here. This is where you hang out. And then go back to answering the door. If she gets up as you're cracking the door, same thing. You just put her back so that it's a really predictable system for her. And then I always tell guests that when they're coming in, to ignore the dog, which is completely counterintuitive to any guest because they're like, cute dog, I want to meet them. Well, that really amplifies the excitement, which breaks down on your process. So while you're, say you get as far as, okay, you've opened the door, and then you say hi, which is actually a trigger to a dog because they're like, well, they're coming now. Mm-hmm. So when you're practicing this with someone you can go, close the door again on somebody who's, obviously not in a hurry to get in the house because they live there, right, and put her back in her spot and teach that process long before you ever work with a stranger or a guest. Work with people she knows because she's going to have a lot of those same motivators, but you have a lot more control. And then when clients started getting traction in that arena, I used to suggest that they put up a little sign that says, dog in training, ring the door once. We know you're here. And so this way they didn't feel, under the gun to respond immediately, and they could really work on the training because it gets to a point where she's like, okay, I know this with you guys, and you're going to have to try it with a stranger.
That's interesting. So does that mean when I walk in the door, I make a huge fuss and I'm like, bye baby? Does that mean I have to stop doing that? Because she gets pretty excited.
Only if someone's put her in a sit and wait before. Like if you're just letting yourself in and there's nobody putting her in a sit and wait, that's fine. It's when you're answering the door or a family member is answering the door that she needs to have that process intact. When you walk through the door, I'm the same way. I'm like, hi guys, I missed you. I don't make a huge to-do about it, but they know that I've missed them. But that's different from me trying to answer the door for, say, a stranger, and then the dog's like scrambling around my legs, trying to push through and see whoever's at the door first. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think that's a problem. But when you're working on the guest or someone on the other side of the door process, that's where it's going to be relevant. And that's where you want them to ignore the dog. And I usually tell clients, go ahead and get your guests settled and then let them greet the dog, because you've already kept some stability throughout the process, and then they can visit with her and make her feel like, oh, she did such a good job. But as they're entering the door where you're trying to build a new history, that's where they need to ignore her.
Okay, I can do that too.
Yeah. And, none of this is going to happen overnight, because she's gotten away with it for, how old is she right now?
Gosh, like 4. I want to say 4. We've had her for 3 years. Is that
okay?
Right?
So yeah, she's still young. I mean, I've worked with super old dogs before, so don't let that discourage you. Just because you've done it a different way all this time doesn't mean you can't install something new. It just takes a little bit longer to reverse, and you have to be really consistent. So like, kids love being involved in stuff like this, asking them to tell her to sit and wait, and then opening and closing the door, that could be a game for them. So I always say, involve as many people within the home as you can. So this way she's got a clear message from everybody.
Cool. That makes sense.
Cool. I love it.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
Cool. Since I have you on the line here. So I used to be able to trim her nails pretty fine. I'm okay about, I get it. Her nails are mostly white, so I can see the
quick.
Yeah. And so I've only nipped her once. It was fine, not super traumatic. Everybody's good. And then the last time I took her to the vet, and they're super nice and everything like that, but they went to trim her nails, and it was like a thing. Like, she ended up peeing and pooping on herself to be like,
oh no,
it was awful. That like, they had like 2 techs that were like, I mean, I've never seen her like that. And I feel like I'm never going to be able to trim her nails again. So I don't know how to, and they're like getting pretty long.
Okay. So let me ask you, when you say you used to trim her nails, no issue, was that you doing it, or was that her going somewhere else to do it?
No, it was me. Like, okay. She'd be sitting on the couch, and sometimes if the kids are around, I'd be like, can you pet Lily and just like make sure she's cool? And she wasn't like super happy about it, but she was
tolerant.
Yeah, I didn't have to like hold her down. And now, like, I thought since the last time it happened, I was like, and I just brought the clippers out, and she was like, nope, not having it.
She was like, thanks, Mom. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of like an anxiety thing, really. She's got, in her mind, she's going back to that state of trauma. So first of all, I would make it a very slow process, because you already know you're doing something that's unfavorable. So I'd start really small. So do you ever like pet her paws or mess with her paws when you're not clipping her nails?
All the time.
Okay, good. So let's add another element to that. So like, next time you're on the couch with her and you're messing with her paws, have the nail clippers handy and just graze them over her feet. Do not clip. Don't have any sort of agenda. Just get her used to seeing them and knowing that they're there, and then praise her and make it brief, like 10, 15 seconds, not super long. And then as she's kind of just being her normal self, relaxed, you're going to reward that, and then you're going to stop. If she tries to like pull her feet away just with the presence of the clippers, I would keep doing what I'm doing until she kind of releases and relaxes a little bit, and then I'd stop, because that's a try.
Okay.
And then kind of building on that, once you've done that, and I would focus on just that easy process for like a week, just that. And once she's kind of, okay, well, they're not really clipping me, it's fine. Then I'd start just with your fingers while the clippers are out, make that feeling of pressure that you normally would apply right before you're clipping them or while you're clipping them without the clippers. Like you have them in the other hand, but you're not using them. So this way you've got the presence factor and you've got the pressure factor, but they haven't been combined yet.
Okay.
And then do that for a week. And as long as she's not showing any opposition a week later, then you can build to the last part, which is the sound and actually touching the clippers and the nails together. So the very first time, would do the teeniest bit, and I'd only do one nail. and I would do just little teeny bits, because if she takes off, you're going to have to stop the process, bring her back, and go back a step. So don't really be in a rush, but if she doesn't give you what you're asking for, then go back to the last thing that she was successful with. So like if you can't clip the nail, but she was fine with the pressure, go back there and do that a little longer. Okay. And then just, you can get to the point where you're doing a whole set of nails at once. But now that she's got this fear complex going on, it's almost like you don't want to put a Band-Aid on it. You really want to heal the wound, even though it's just in her head, really. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to be honest, like I used to tell clients a lot, like, you bring your dog to a vet, and while you know what's going on, they're not as much of a fan of the whole process. Mm-hmm. So, I think taking her out of that environment and doing it at home and doing it in small steps will serve you far better than trying to get a groomer to like hold her down and muzzle her and like hope and pray you get some nails done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So do it in stages and don't be in a rush. That's the key, and brief. Eventually you'll get to the point where you're clipping off the edges of the nails and she's like, whatever, nothing bad's going to happen. But you've taken away all of the triggers and neutralized all of the triggers that really made it difficult.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So give that a shot and let me know how that works out for you. And then I wanted to tell our listeners about your podcast and kind of what you guys talk about.
Oh, thank you. Well, I started my podcast after my mom passed away. It's called Pearls from My Mom. And what I do is, it's been so nice for me and for the guests I've had on, and then for the listeners too. But I interview people whose moms have passed away. And the meat of the show is, the pearl of wisdom that your mom gave you that you want to share with the world. But we go over her story. Sometimes people talk about, how like all the time from the time she was born till the time that she passed away. And we talk about advice for people that are going through grief. And it sounds heavy. It's a heavy subject.
But that's really a beautiful concept. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's like when as soon as I finish the interview with people, we hit stop record, and then it's just like, oh, that was, it feels nice. And when I listen to the episodes, which sounds kind of narcissistic, but I don't like the sound of my own voice, but I do listen back to the episodes because it takes me back to that time when the guest and I connected. So I love it. I'm having such a good time doing it. It's called Pearls from My Mom. So if anybody wants to check it out, they can find it on.
Yes. And I'm actually going to post a link in the show notes so anybody can check it out there and follow you that way. And then you have a blog too, don't you?
I do. Yeah. It's pearlsfrommymom.com. I'm a sporadic writer at best.
Okay.
How much I get it out. My podcast is weekly and it always comes out weekly, but I'm going to write more. And my love for dogs was started by my mom. I grew up with dogs. And so it's just dogs and moms and everything. It's all
leaves a legacy, not only for her, but for people that have great memories with their mom, but they don't realize. And so they have it all internalized. So I think that's a really awesome thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I think what you're doing is awesome too. I love to.
I was turning away so many clients that I was like, all right, I know what advice to be giving them. Why am I turning them away? Like these people still need help. And then there's the ultimate question of who do you refer them to? And it's like, well, I don't really know. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me. And I really hope that our listeners, connect with you too. And maybe we could do this again.
For sure. Yeah. I'll tell you how my training goes.
Yeah. Yeah. We need like a show update.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for having me. This was really, really fun.
Yeah, this is our first guest interview, so like you're at the top.
It's perfect.
Okay, everybody. So thank you again to Jessie. And don't forget to check out her podcast, Pearls from My Mom, so that you can listen in on her show. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. This has been Victoria, your dog guru, and I'll see you on the other side.